Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this joint presentation and this joint CISO to CISO fireside chat with Barrier and Snyk and Flo Health. And we have some great conversation, and we have some great things to talk about. And I'd like to say a big thank you to Leo Cunningham, the CISO at Flo Health, and Paul Harland, the manager of channel solution architects at Snyk. And we have a lot to talk about in terms of the processes to help create world-class products with world-class security by shifting security left. And this is a very fascinating topic for me. I used to do programming and development a long time ago. Yes, I did create an entire multi-page website using Windows Notepad back in the day, before IDEs and before there was any type of developer help. I would type raw HTML into text files. And I've seen the developer community just absolutely expand with the tools that they need to create fantastic tools with fantastic impact on the world, and what's necessary to make them secure and to enable the developers to make sure that they're developing securely from the very start. And so I'm very, very glad to be here speaking with Snyk and with Leo from Flo Health, who is developing some incredible products and just some amazing apps that are used worldwide. And I'm just really excited to hear about Leo's story and his journey about what that looks like. But what I would like to do now is I would like to first I'd like to say hello to Paul. Hi, Paul.
Hi there. How you doing, Jordan?
And I've got some questions about shifting left and what that means. But first, for all of the attendees, if you have any questions and if you have anything that you would like to say or anything that you'd like to ask, please put them into the chat, and we'll try to answer all of the relevant questions that we can during this time together. But we have a lot of things to talk about, and we'd love to be able to answer any questions you have. So the term shift left, right, is a relatively new-ish term. It's got really popular a couple years ago, and it has this meaning of moving more and more responsibilities and more of the development functions and fixes a little closer to the developer. What does shift left mean now in 2022? Has that meaning shifted in its implication and how people use it and how people implement that in their development streams and in their DevOps environments? What does it mean now? Has it shifted itself? And what does it mean for Snyk?
Okay, well, first of all, it's good to know that you were a developer, and yeah, things have moved along a little bit since we don't use Notepad now; we use Notepad++. So there we go. And yeah, the whole software world is changing. That pace of change is only increasing. We've seen practices, processes improve, be created, be destroyed, new languages, new ways of working, and we're just in this kind of Cambrian explosion of how to do things, how to use extra generations of languages, layers of abstraction, not just in creating software, but also in hosting software. Now, shift left as a term is fairly new, but the concept is, dates back, to really the start of software development and understanding how do we create software that people want to use? How do we create the right things? How do we make sure that they're secure first time? How do we stop delays in software being released? And it's all around how can we work together as a team that generates ideas, builds software, hosts software, deploys software in order to kind of keep that one unified team. Now, in terms of security, shifting left really means that what we're trying to do is front load some of the work thinking about and repairing any problems in security that we see. Now, that could go all the way to design. That could also go all the way to actually removing vulnerabilities that have been found. And we're at a stage now where it's more important to shift left. shift left has been adopted by a lot of people now. So it's not a new concept that people have to kind of adopt. It's a case of how much shifting left do we do? Do we try and front load everything, or are we still waiting until the end? And a lot of that really comes from the way we're making and releasing software. When I was a developer, which I also was a few years ago, releases were, quarterly maybe, or sometimes a half. And you could really prepare everything quite slowly, methodically to get ready for that release. And then a few weeks before release, we'll have user acceptance testing. We'll have endpoint testing, pen tests, things like that. And they come back with some changes. We'd have a bit of time ready to get that release ready. But we're now in a world where we release once a week, once a day, 15 times a day. And therefore, you can't rely on them processes at the end of the sprint. We need to make sure that we're doing this. And it needs to be as well, not left to best endeavors, which was kind of the security methodology a few years ago, which was, oh, we've got one guy on our team. He's really good at security. We'll make sure that he does that. Or, oh, he's on holiday in Anglesey this week, so he'll do it next week. We'll make our best endeavors. What we need now is a scalable way of ensuring that we've always got the processes and tools in place to remove each and every vulnerability, to have visibility into each and every vulnerability as well, so that we can always do these things at scale and not rely on that best endeavors. So I think we're reaching a stage with shift left now where everybody realizes this is how we should be working. They're on that path to deploying the processes and tools, because it's not just a problem solved by tools, in order to move some of that work early. And people are along that journey somewhere in this graduation to being able to be fully what's considered shifted left. Now, what I don't know is what shift left will mean in the future either, because again, things are changing. The world of development will be totally different in 10 years. We might not be using containers. Kubernetes may be defunct by then, and we're on to the next phase of how do we deploy things as functions in serverless. So what we've got to realize is this is a thing we need to stay on top of. We need to understand the shifts in how things are working, and we need to make sure that our processes are agile enough to change with the new methodologies as we go forward. Quite a long answer, but that's my thoughts on shift left at the moment.
No, that's comprehensive. No, that's really good. Wow, the thought of Kubernetes just suddenly becoming obsolete just seems weird and also fitting, right?
But who knows? Yeah. That's exactly it. We just need to ensure that we're agile enough to adapt, rather than being stuck in our ways, and therefore, like the cream rise to the top.
So you're saying, I've heard you say that everyone knows that we need to shift security more left. We need to do more shifting of that left so that things are fixed before they become a problem, as opposed to fixing them after they become a problem.
Yeah.
But the question I have, and I've run into this in a couple different contexts, is everyone knows, or everyone agrees academically, that shifting left is important, but is everybody starting that shift? Is there resistance, and are there environments where they can't or don't, or what are the reasons for people not shifting left?
I've seen a few different reasons. Some boil down to perhaps the architecture that they're supporting. And some really boil down also to organizational structures. So, for instance, if you have a long legacy of software development and you are creating software and updating software that perhaps has 10, 15 years background, and you've got multiple releases of this software out in the wild, and you're maintaining patch fixes and branches of this whole ecosystem of software, then it's quite hard to make that change and say, actually, we've got to change our processes on this existing software. But sometimes a business like that will make the change with a small team first, on a new piece of software, on a new way of working, and try and work out, actually, is this a better way? Can we do it in a gradual way? There's also the organizational challenges, which is, well, we've always had the security team and the compliance team as that gatekeeper. And they're allowed to whitelist what the developers are allowed to do. They're allowed to stop them doing things, and they're really in charge. They're our gatekeepers. And if we start removing the power from them and allowing developers to do what they want, then anarchy, the fires everywhere, trouble. And that organizational change is quite hard to try and implement and understand, again, especially if you've got that legacy. And there's actually a real great, I'm not sure whether to call it a pamphlet or a booklet, called The Cathedral and the Bazaar. And it kind of shows the difference in software development between the old school Richard Stallmans of the world, who very much sat in an ivory tower, designed exactly what software should be, and then they've released that software, to the kind of Linus Torvalds Linux world, where it was a scrappy group of developers all working towards the same loosely defined goal, releasing software 2 or 3 times a day from their own styles, and just trying to get software that generally works, get early eyeballs on the software and make sure that we're getting to the right point. Now, obviously, in an enterprise, it can be slightly different. You've got customer data. You've got regulations that you have to adhere to. So making that change has to be gradual, has to be organizational led, enabled by tools. And sometimes we see that that change has to be slow, just to ensure that we're not running before we can walk, and that we don't make mistakes which lead to perhaps a degradation in development speed or user adoption by the software and things like that. So it's always important to work with the business as well as the developers to make sure that we're making them changes slowly enough so that everybody can be brought along on that journey.
You bring up one of the questions that I've had when it comes to questions of culture, something that I'm very interested in organizational culture when it comes to security and change management. When you are implementing or wanting to implement more of a shift left approach, you said it needs to be organizational led. Does that mean more of a top down leadership or more of a bottom up or of a mix? Are you talking about a spread? With your position at Snyk, where have you seen the best success in adopting this as a change? Is it top led that needs to happen? Is it bottom led? Is it universally
Yeah.
universally led? How does that work to maximize that success?
I've seen so many different implementations, because before I worked in the channel, I was a solutions engineer. So I've seen many different implementations. Some come from the top down, but it's always important to get buy-in across the board. Nobody likes to be given tools and a process and say, you need to do this because of this. What they do is they like to learn, understand, and ingest the new ways of working themselves. So we always approach, when we're working with new customers, we always approach with that kind of interacting across the whole DevOps pipeline and up into the executive suite as well, just to understand, look, this is what we're doing and this is why we think it's important. These are the benefits that you'll get from this. And actually, to the customer, these are your compelling reasons. This is why you want to do this as well. So it's not just about, you need to do this change. They need to understand internally why they want that change. So often, yeah, we go for that grassroots approach, which is actually, when we're speaking to a new customer, we'll often find some developers that are already working with Snyk, maybe just on the free tier, but we'll already find them that, I'm testing my code with Snyk anyway already. So it's really, I mean, there's about 3 million people in the world using Snyk on that free tier as well. So you can always find developers that are using it. And that grassroots approach is really good, because then it's part of their idea. They've already had this idea to use Snyk and they're finding real value in it. And when it does come from, okay, we've decided to go with Snyk because of these benefits, it ensures that we're deploying it across the board. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Look, you've heard the term shelfware before. Somebody comes in, decides that we need this software. I used it at my last place. It was great. So I've bought some licenses here. Everybody start using this now, and it doesn't get adopted or used. There's no value found in that software. And after the contracts run out, they'll go and find something else. So what we don't want to do is just get somebody to purchase Snyk. We want to get someone to find that value in Snyk. And that's why we work across the board.
Okay, so let's get down to sort of brass tacks here on what Snyk can do and what types of things that Snyk can help with an organization with in shifting things left. What can Snyk help to shift left in an organization?
Yeah. Okay. So specifically, when we're looking at the platform, we've got 4 key tenants now, a 5th to be added soon. So they are, we've got our static analysis tool called Snyk Code. We've got our source composition analysis tool, Snyk Open Source. We've got our container tool as well, and then infrastructure as code. Basically, all those tools allow developers from the very earliest stages, even on their own machine before they've committed the work, to find and fix the vulnerabilities that they have within their code. Now, a lot of developers and development houses these days follow a process called GitOps. So that means that what we're doing is we are deploying everything, or we're creating configuration for everything that that application needs to host itself in the same Git repository. So that will be the code that you're writing as a developer, the open source that you're including, the containers, the Terraform files, Helm charts, CloudFormation. All of this will be in that same repository. So we can scan that repository either on your machine, in the Git repo, even in the CI/CD pipeline, and even in your live clusters serverless functions as well. And we can tell the developer, not just give them a big report that they can print off and put in a drawer or straight to the shredder, but give them a report that's actually useful. It's prioritized, it's actionable. You know, there's things like pull requests that they can use to create. And right at the top of the report is the most important thing you need to fix. We've worked really hard to prioritize these reports just to reduce that load on the developer, to let them understand this is what you need, this is your next best action. Fix this first. And then once you've fixed that initial, you can go down to the next and keep going down. Now, when we're talking about the 4 different elements, we're allowing the developers really to not integrate everywhere, because we're not saying you need to use every integration. What we're saying is, what's best for you? Is it that you do it on your local machine before you commit? Or is it you do your work on your local machine and then you commit it up to the Git repository where someone checks it? We don't know your internal processes or how you want to work before we speak with you. And that's why we offer that wide range of integrations. Obviously, sometimes the more integrations, the better. That means that we're getting more insight, more overview, and we can see how things flow through that DevOps pipeline as well. But it's all about understanding what's best for the customer. What we don't want is that retrograde step in development velocity. You know, when a new tool comes in and things start stopping, builds are green, builds are red, we don't get anything live. So we always go through some initial phases first. The first one we call visibility. So let's understand what our ground state is. How many vulnerabilities have we got in which applications, which are our most vulnerable apps, which are our most important apps as well? You know, where should we concentrate our time? And then after that, it's about removing the kind of the low-hanging fruit. What are the easy ones to get rid of that will give us the biggest bang for buck? Only after that point do we then stop new vulnerabilities going in, and then stop deployments going live with vulnerabilities. So that gradual change ensures there's no shock, no system shock to the development, and the customer can actually implement it, you know, over time with a plan organized by our customer success team into that deployment, which then stops new vulnerabilities going live. So it's about looking at the whole application, but also about deciding where's the best place to do these scans and what's the best way to implement the whole platform as well.
So that's great. That's amazing. One of the questions that I have in terms of this process is that you're empowering the developers, right? You're giving them the tools that they need when they need it, and however it's appropriate in their build process in order to do things. But I wonder about your thoughts on whether or not we're asking too much of our developers by pushing more and more and more of these responsibilities left and more into their realm. And are we creating, by empowering them, are we creating sort of a log jam on each individual developer? And if developers don't want that, right? If they just want to be able to code, they just want to spit whatever code they want into the pipeline just to get that feature off their list today, and they don't want to have to deal with this, right? Is this a problem that you're seeing? Is this something that you've seen before? And do you have means of incentivizing the developers to want to take on security? Because as much as we like this utopia of each developer taking on the mantle of security and making sure that the code that they're developing is bug free, feature rich, and secure, right? There's going to be this natural resistance to be able to do that. And although Snyk, makes that a lot easier for them to do that,
Yeah,
are
yeah.
you seeing that resistance, and how do we get over that resistance? How do we incentivize?
Do you know, I'm not seeing much or any of that resistance. I mean, I have to be careful answering this one, to be honest. But the thing is, if you're looking at developing a feature or a new application or microservice, security is actually one of the requirements. You know, it's not an extra nice to have. Security is a functional and a non-functional requirement of that actual piece of code, of that working thing. And developers on the whole want to create the best thing that they can. They don't just want to spit something out. You get to that phase really when perhaps you're in kind of BAU maintenance mode as a developer and have lots of bugs to fix that have been sent back from QA and you're late on a release. Part of the beauty of doing programming is being creative and solving problems and building something. And if you're given the time to actually do something well, um, most, if not all, of the developers that I know would prefer to spend that time and do a job well. Now, perhaps it's the way that we're working, in a modern way where perhaps developers are overtaxed in the amount of things they need to do and not given that breathing space. But I certainly haven't seen it from developers who don't want to start thinking about security. Perhaps there sometimes would be an aversion to a certain tool they needed to use or had to use, which were delegated to them. But certainly, you know, developing and playing a role in that whole security context as well is really important for them. And you're absolutely right. What Snyk's trying to do is make that as an easy approach as possible in such a way that we've now got Snyk Learn, which is a new thing that we've added to our capability. And when you see a certain vulnerability, for instance, if as a developer you've coded in an SQL injection error, we'll also give you a lesson. And that lesson can kind of step you out of your day job for half an hour. And it can be, okay, come and learn more about SQL injection errors. And there you can create some code, make it vulnerable, exploit the vulnerability and fix it. And it just gives you that little extra, okay, I've learned something today. I know how to prevent these SQL vulnerability problems. And I can go and put that back into my work when I start going there as well. And we've seen real adoption and use of these different tools as well. So there's definitely a requirement or a need and a want from the developers to actually learn more about this security. So I think we'll see more and more developers actually realizing that this actually makes them a better developer, makes them, more ninja, I think they call it, at their job, and they'll want to get more and more involved.
I've worked in software development houses where there would be a certain demographic that just wanted to just write the features, and security was someone else's problem, or you fix that at the firewall layer or whatever. They didn't want to do that, but yeah, no one walks into their job wanting to do a bad job, right?
Yeah,
Everyone wants to have what they need to be successful, right? They
I
want
think
to
the
have
same
those
thing.
tools.
Oh, sorry. And I think the same thing happened with testing. Now, early software developers, if we're looking at the gang of four, the original Java developers, they build tests with their code. And then we went to this phase where developers would develop and would have testers that would write tests, either test scripts or unit tests, and test the code for them. And that disconnect, I don't think was that good. And now developers are doing proper test-driven development. They're doing the writing red-green tests, making sure that things that they do are solving the problem and just the problem they want it to do. And I think that connection between security, testing, functional requirements, and software all working should be kept together because it's a whole package that you're delivering, not just a nice function or a nice algorithm. It's a whole package that someone needs to use. And that's really what we're doing in creating software.
Absolutely. Solving big problems, changing the world.
Yeah.
We're not just writing code. We're actually helping the planet. I mean, this is effectively what we're doing, which is a great segue for speaking to Leo Cunningham, who is the CISO for Flo Health, which is, correct me, CISO, if I'm wrong, the most downloaded app for health. Is that true? Is that still true?
That's
So
correct,
the
yeah.
most downloaded app for health. And so this means that this app is extremely important. And development of this app is going to be extremely important. And then the security requirements and the expectations and the trust you need to build with this app also is extremely important. Am I wrong in any of that?
No.
Okay, so you have quite the mantle that you are needing to take up on this one, and I don't envy you that particular task. So because you are developing this app and you're delivering it and you're needing to make sure you're doing these updates securely, so you've obviously got a lot of these development problems that Paul's been talking about, and you're obviously nodding your head on a lot of these things, that these are common issues that you yourself and your teams are having to deal with. So you are a Snyk customer, right? So what problems were you experiencing before you brought Snyk into your pipeline?
Yeah, so we had a standard DevOps approach, and we wanted to shift left as the company is on a trajectory of hyperscale and scaling at such a pace where I think we went from a couple of releases to 10 releases. Our environment is massive. So yeah, we wanted to look for a way for security to scale with the business and not hinder any of its development or engineering deliverables. And our mission, of course, is to build a world-class product. Then on top of that is how do you scale and build a world-class security function and give our users, that level of comfort that we're doing everything possible. So yeah, we started the journey with Snyk, I think about 15 months ago. And Snyk helped us with the DevSecOps approach. And for us, we really needed to look at how do we automate as much of security as possible within our development lifecycle. How do we utilize SAST and DAST, and then look at everything else that we had, because we had a traditional pen test approach, and we find something that then goes into the development queue and pipeline, and then there's not real much visibility, support, or education for our developers. So we needed a capability that could scan all of our code for potential vulnerabilities and help remediate them in a developer-friendly way. So I think earlier you'd mentioned, SQL injection, how do you fix it? We needed that education step, and also to help us, look at specific themes, commonality, and then, let's fine tune the CI/CD pipeline, as well as maintaining that agile approach. So yeah, we needed a tool that could be highly adopted and highly scaled. I think over about 150 developers. I think it took about 2.5 months initially, and it makes everyone's life easier when it's looking at code quality. Again, looking at open source items, looking at our infrastructure as code, reviewing containers, libraries, third-party dependencies, and also branch deployments. And then there's a lot of aspects of that infrastructure and development lifecycle, and like most companies, are probably going to miss something. So yeah, we wanted to get that tool or the tools to scale and improve that whole journey. So prior to that, we just had AWS security tooling and relied on penetration testing, which is effectively time boxed as well. So we wanted to obviously scale that, and yeah, I think our biggest weaknesses at the time were, poor quality, and then things like open ports or unrestricted market access. So we wanted to, shift left, give that support to everyone that needed it, and then ultimately capture everything in-house before we obviously deploy it and capture it within the CI/CD pipeline. So yeah, that's a kind of, in a nutshell, our problem statement. Yeah.
So when you're looking at, your existing tools that you had, it was the AWS security and pen testing. So what were you looking for in a solution to improve that situation and to get to look after those pain points that you had? What were you looking for in order to solve those issues?
Yeah, we needed a tool that could integrate into the CI/CD pipeline. We needed something that could scan millions of lines of code and scan lots of data at pace, and ultimately take our developers and engineers on a journey where we take a lot of responsibility away from them, take away all traditional approaches, and build in to the DevOps approach, and obviously the Sec DevOps, but again, automate as much as security as possible. So then it reduces the stress burden on them and stops that kind of stop-start process. And again, everything's controlled with pull requests as well. So we also, we wanted a product that could give us reliable insights. And I think Snyk, in terms of what it gives us, you know, everything from, we have multiple different delivery streams, engineering streams. So we needed to fine tune straight into these delivery streams or engineering teams, and to then find out, you know, do we have vulnerable projects? You know, what does it look like across microservices? You know, can we look at everything from CVE, CWE info? You know, how many dependencies that are impacted through, say, you have one exploit or one item that needs patched, that could effectively tick the box on 1,000 other items across other dependencies. So everything across things like Prometheus, Java, and everything else. So yeah, license management, I think it's important as well, and policy adoption is also really useful. And Snyk has lots of guides on, you know, how you implement all of this, and ultimately, you know, it gives us a really good board report as well. So again, for executive level and again at engineering level, which helped us effectively work with specific teams, tell them what trends and themes were coming out from their pipelines and their code base. And again, you know, lots of information around ease of fix and items that you can't physically update because there isn't an update in the wild. So again, also it would give us exposure window so we can track SLAs. So we implemented a lot of SLAs within our vulnerability management. We automated it all. So something triggers on Snyk, that then obviously creates something into Jira, and then we can effectively look at that fix to find ratio as well.
Now, being able to use an automated tool to work out SLAs, that's a fascinating concept. That's great. I like that. So what Snyk modules, what Snyk products have you integrated already?
So we have open source, container, infrastructure as code, and I think the license management's built in one of those packages as well. Yeah.
Okay. And so what impact have these products then had on your development cycle, on your company, on how you develop, how you deploy, and how you secure?
Yeah, so I mean, with it being integrated in the CI/CD pipeline, again, it's detecting critical high vulnerabilities and blocking them within you know, an adequate time frame. You know, explains why they're being blocked, and then we can obviously debate them quite quickly with the engineering teams. And again, you know, Snyk's given us the tools and the insights into the types of risks that we're faced with, whether it be through code and hygiene or just deployment processes. And again, it's decreased the lead time for fully secure code from months to mere minutes. I mean, the rate of pace that Snyk items can scan, I still at times don't believe that it's possible. But again, you know, it makes our life a hell of a lot easier and moves us away from traditional security practices. And again, it helps us with a roadmap of items that need patched, and then kind of looks at year on year or month on month analysis around, you know, who's producing good code, who's producing bad code, and everything across that as well. And there is an education element that really helps, and lots of resources on Snyk website and with the account management team, and it really helps us articulate at times so we can speak engineering terms. And again, you know, really helps secure our SDLC by giving us those data insights. It actually helped us gamify the process, so we're able to create all of our engineering teams, look at what they were producing, look at their ability to fix once they found items. And through the partnership, and special shout out to Maria Lepp at Snykside, who really helped us create a positive environment. We did a lot of road shows, and then again, we have a league table, so kind of a champions league of, you know, who's producing really well within their teams, and then we can reward them internally, whether it be through vouchers, or we have a system called bonus lead points where people can convert those points into like Amazon vouchers and everything else. So, and again, it really helps the natural working relationship with teams. So we've given them the tools, we give them the education, and it really helps us bridge that working relationship together. And again, becomes the processing point where security champions can help lead with the local teams when it comes to any kind of development changes, and again, delivering security training. But previously, I'll give you some numbers. We were implementing about 5 or 10 fixes for security flaws per month. Once we implemented Snyk, that went from about 300 up to close to 2,000 issues a month we were able to fix. And it again reduces our need for 20 additional headcount within security as well. And our infrastructure is quite big as well on the back of that. Yeah.
Just Leo, can I just ask a question about the gamification side? Is that inter-team or intra-team? You know, do you kind of create a Patronus Towers
Yeah,
style?
so we have multiple streams, and within those streams they have dedicated teams. So let's just hypothetically say 150 people. So they obviously clustered, you know, within their own respective tribes, as we'll call them. So then they'll have a specific team. So one team will be mobile, one team will be prediction cycles for the app, the other one will be data insights. So they'll each contain different quadrants. So they'll have like QA people, they'll have developers, testers, everything else. So yeah, through the kind of gamification, we created a leadership board within our reporting with Snyk. So then it tells us which team's performing. We have a nice shiny medal at the next to those teams. So when we give out our reports every month, they can see who's doing really well. We'll also take the other teams that aren't doing so well, we'll take them offline, and you know, we'll work with them just to say, you know, do you have any issues with Snyk tooling? Is there anything that we can do in terms of better education? You know, and again, it kind of highlights, we can pinpoint specifically what people are creating within their code base to then help them improve, if that makes sense. So, but again, there's also the flip side of a team produces 20,000 items, we'll call it an output, but you know, they're sometimes that'll kind of fluctuate and gauge. So it might look like they're producing really bad code and fixing that bad code. So, which is good for us because we can say, well, they're actually producing more bad code than what they're actually fixing, if that makes sense. So that really helps us with our general security culture and support around that.
Yeah. And have you found it's kind of helped that interaction between teams which were perhaps security, development, operations? Have they become closer or work together better, anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, we have an infrastructure side that deals with the kind of provisioning, then obviously developers within that provisioning and then releasing into services. And again, you know, prior to having Snyk, there was not real much visibility. So I dread to imagine, you think the highest count we've ever, I think we've stopped over 70,000 items in release. And again, that's probably because of we're releasing 10 times a day. You know, we've got 600 containers across 20 AWS, 300 repositories. So there's lots of infrastructure there. So again, when I say these big numbers, that's I think relatively normal compared to companies at the same size of us as well.
Yeah. Excellent.
So Leo, what differences have you seen since implementing Snyk in your flow?
Yeah, so we now run automated checks every minute for each commitment, decreasing the normal cycle from 1 month to 1 minute, as I mentioned earlier. Although obviously development teams increased the number of pull requests, that gives us the actual visibility to say pass or go. And again, our production time has stayed the same after the introduction of Snyk. Our deployments take less than 1 minute, even with the additional checks. So yeah, we've increased our visibility and general improvement across our implementation and deployments. And again, it's not reduced any speed. I think for us, the critical aspect to the success of the project is the development team could fix security issues without losing any time or productivity, and actually gained efficiency with security. So they were actually learning as well. And again, it makes everything so much healthier with our relationships. means there's fewer revisions required as to an old traditional approach. And again, it helps us identify product roadmaps and feature roadmaps, so then we can tailor Snyk to then capture anything that may be, again, a new repository or a new aspect or a new infrastructure component. Given our explosive growth as a company, that's really made the difference. And our kind of stats around that is, and brace yourself, a 4,000% increase in security fixes every month, 150% increase in commits, and deployment time remains sub 1 minute. And again, roadmap helps us tackle the features and everything else that may be lacking in the backlogs. So I think over the past 90 days, we've had about 270,000 items scanned against over 2,000 projects. And again, we're preventing tens of thousands of items being released into the wild. And I think off the back of that alone, there was over 17,000 high vulnerabilities that we were able to stop and automatically fix. So that's another component of Snyk. So it can show you all these dashboards and tell you what you can automatically fix there and then, which is excellent. So again, we spoke about low-hanging fruit, especially when it comes to critical or high vulnerabilities, and tells you if there's any other dependencies. So, kind of lets you aware if there's anything that may break if you do try to automatically fix anything in there. Yeah.
So if I were to wave my evil magic wand and remove Snyk from your environment, what do you think you'd have to do in order to maintain these benefits that you're getting that you've experienced? And how long have you been using Snyk in your environment?
It's now about let's just say 15, 16 months. Yeah.
Okay. So everything that you've learned and everything you've experienced over 15 months, how would you replicate that in your environment in order to achieve the same velocity, same security, and the same push that you have?
Yeah. So I think if you were saying magic wand, remove Snyk, how would we then kind of get back to a position of excellence? A lot of research would need to be done. There's a lot of rivals out there that during our ADR process of analysing different vendors, a lot of people are very aggressive. For us, we like the relationship, the fact that Snyk understand us as a scale-up company as well. Probably to answer your question, John, we would need to look at a lot of open source, which can be sometimes not trusted. But again, I'm seeing a lot of companies moving towards just open source in general. But again, you need additional eyes on. You would then need to retrain everyone. You might not get the same output in terms of data, and also that reporting structure, so that people can understand, friendly language, whether they're at executive level or, within a localized team who's churning out 10,000 lines of code. So yeah, that's where we would probably be. Yeah.
So Paul was talking about, implementing a shifting left culture and a shifting left approach, and that organizational wide push and support to do that. How, at an organizational level, how did you implement and promote and get everybody on board in terms of that shifting left approach in order to implement Snyk? Was it developer led? Was it you led? Was it senior management led? How did that come to life in Flo?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a mixed bag, and it was actually led by an engineer on our blue team, our cloud security team. And, they kind of looked at, we obviously have this big issue, and the kind of model of the kind of best practice for rolling out is, let's find a team that we have a good relationship with and finding the right team to start with them to implement it, use them as a proof of concept, then train them or design training that's adequate for other people within the organization, then look at any performance indicators or any metrics that can help, show you what you're trying to achieve, how you're going to achieve it, and the actual measurable, quantifiable output of that to then show you the value of what you're trying to implement. Then defining obviously kind of policy around what's an established process, what does it look like, how do you get access, do we have lots of information? So in this example, Snyk obviously has a vast library of knowledge, and then how do you have a test case or running model of integration into your software development lifecycle? What does that look like? How do you create experiments to pass and fail within the CI/CD pipeline? And I think it's important as well to get feedback from people. So guys, go run with it. Let's see if we can create any damage, a bit of chaos engineering, and then say, does it work for us? Does it work for our company? Does it work for how we scale as an organization? So shift left for me is about culture and taking away as much manual overhead. So again, it's empowering people with tools and education first and foremost. I think there's such a misconception. Senior people in security always think that developers are useless. They can't write secure code. Well, why would they write secure code? They've never been trained. I think it's only in recent years where people have really thought about it, that maybe when we're teaching developers how to write code, we should educate them. We're seeing that a lot with coding institutes. We're seeing it in universities and everywhere else, where people are now starting to say, this is an actual requirement to write secure code, because if you don't, it leads to data compromise and reputational damage and everything else. Yeah.
And now we've got cybersecurity issues being weaponized as well. It's even more important, isn't it? It's not just a commercial thing these days. It's a nation states as well. People have really got to be careful when they're coding.
Yeah, guns for hire. Even expressions within quantum-based technologies, which will probably be normal in a matter of years, and then machine learning. Weaponizing that.
Yeah.
Fuzzing techniques and getting that. The ingress input point of affecting your ML structures, which then create complete havoc, and then they become self-aware through instructions, which your normal heuristic-based technology can't detect, because this thing has a mind of its own because of a series of malicious instructions. So, yeah.
We're in a software arms race, and we need to be cognizant of that, don't we?
Absolutely, yeah.
I used to be a security manager in a software as a service company, and in the environment that we were in, it was a very real threat where foreign nation states would entice or otherwise affect university students in computer science and computer science programs who were just coming out of their degree programs and going to internships or going to their first jobs in the tech sector, and they would influence them in order to write back doors or to write bad code, which could then be compromised and exploited by the foreign nation state. And so it was a massive challenge to deal with it was the insider threat, but they weren't trying to be malicious. They didn't have a choice, unfortunately. But looking at, the inadvertent mistakes, right? And the just bad code quality and some of these other issues, but also having that insight into bad code before it reaches the pipeline, right, to make sure that everything is taken care of. So this arms race is very, very real, and it's been in place for a long time, and the issues have been a struggle and a challenge for a long time. We've talked about security and security quality within the code, but we can also talk about code quality in general, right? And we talk about shifting left and making sure that general code quality, can also be improved. And in what ways can Snyk help with that?
It's a good question. Again, visibility around things like the OWASP top 10. Also, again, there's aspects where, for instance, you were looking at API limits. Again, it's like if you're only doing a test on a specific load of the API, then, say for instance, it can only manage 10 API calls, and, obviously that's released or it's not updated, then, there's items where there's like 100,000 API calls, but any of the kind of components within that build, within the specific environment or however you set up your CI/CD, or any kind of plugins that tie into APIs, then there's items there that will effectively become aware, from your entire journey of a build to release. So regardless of however you deploy or the mechanisms of deploying. So again, Snyk is all constantly being updated as well, and obviously new additions to that. And obviously new languages being added as well. So again, there's so much visibility. I think, it's a very difficult question to answer, but I think at the same point, probably Paul can chip in. But for us personally at Flo, it covers a massive, massive group of things that we should really be looking at, and every company should be, especially based on your kind of user base, and again, we're the most downloaded health app on the planet, and everything else. So we obviously have a lot of sensitive data, so it's very important for us to get visibility and coverage. So whoever's working in Snyk, whether it be developer, infrastructure engineer, tester, whatever it may be, it gives them that visibility and level of comfort of where to find things, where to fix them, and any other dependencies that may be branched elsewhere within that journey. Yeah.
I guess to add to that, Leo, one of the things that we do with our customers is we do developer relations sessions. So that's one of our key developers who've got long experience in developing secure code. Come and speak to your developers and just give a bit of an educational overview of where we are. What the threats are, what we can do to improve our posture against these threats. And we've also got things like I mentioned before, Snyk Learn, which is a way we can go in and actually get some hands-on experience of some code outside our day job on how to create and fix these types of vulnerabilities. And when we're looking at some of our strategic alliances, whether it's AWS, Atlassian, Red Hat, we've got a lot of tutorials and quick starts which show actually how can we very quickly get the integrations up and running with our existing system as well. So we're looking at it rather than just the code, also about the infrastructure. How do I integrate and get some of this insight across all of the tools in a wider way? So we're always trying to bootstrap and help developers get these things up and running as quickly as possible. Therefore, they can spend their time, their creative thoughts, actually on creating the code that they are paid, I suppose, to do.
And just to add on that, Paul, I mean, we had a session last year, with Snyk, and I think it showed a bit more tangible insight and kind of hands-on, like, I'm getting a lot of feedback, right? Let's focus on that feedback. Here is a point here. Yeah. We can focus on it. And, I think the biggest challenge is people just lack the knowledge, yeah. And they feel sometimes maybe a bit ashamed that they shouldn't know that, well, they don't know this. And, again, you guys are obviously linking up with a lot of different companies, getting that information. And, some of the tutorials, I'm really surprised at how you guys been able to really take this complex subject matter and make it relatively easy. So the information's there, the repositories there of all that knowledge, and people, I think it's in their benefit and their best interest to learn that. Then that makes their life easier, and makes them probably feel less, I don't like saying insecure, but again, we're obviously.
It can absolutely be that. Look, if you've been a developer for well over a decade and things are changing around you, you just need to be agile yourself. You need to learn perhaps a new language, a new way of working, just to stay ahead of things. I mean, it got to a stage when I stopped developing about 4 years ago now, just as JavaScript was turning to TypeScript, and I was like, oh, I don't get this TypeScript stuff. I just want JavaScript. And then I thought, right, just go and do it. Just go and learn it. The things are moving. Don't be afraid of them. Just step into it and learn it. So that's just my personal experience on that. But you're absolutely right. There's no shame in having to relearn, retrain. It's part of a modern software developer's job to need to do that consistently and thoroughly. Maybe once or twice a year these days. Who knows?
Yeah, being a modern developer is a constant treadmill of learning, and there's new frameworks and new things, and then each new framework and technology and language has its own security implications, and it just piles on top of each other, and then there's layers upon layers and a stack of stacks, and it all just gets to be a massive issue. Like I said at the start, I developed new multi-page websites from Notepad, and I did a development project about 10 years ago, and having to do some JavaScript and sort of modernize my web development. And I started counting. There were 15 frameworks that I needed to learn and implement into my project. And this was 10 years ago. And because each framework provided something different, and then each framework had its own implications and security issues and problems. And it was just, that was 10 years ago, and that was that.
Yeah, yeah.
And now I can't even imagine the exponential explosion of the different things that are necessary. If I wanted to do a simple multi-page website, right, and how I would develop it, how I'd host it, how I'd release it. So there's this constant need for learning and reinforcement. And just because you don't know something doesn't mean that you've somehow, incompetent or don't know your job. It's just that things have moved on a lot faster than you've been able to catch up. But there's a lot of resource out there to help. And the more resource that there is, especially at the point of coding, like Snyk and its tools, and the shift left concept, then the more secure that code is before it hits that critical point, and before it hits production, before it hits the problem, before it becomes a problem, it can be addressed. So I thank Paul and Leo for joining me today. Do you have any some parting thoughts? We've got a couple minutes. Do you have any parting thoughts that you'd like to say or share with the audience today on shifting left and Snyk and modern development?
Yeah, just a quick thing to say, really, and I guess this is more a kind of new concept or a new thing that Snyk are moving into, which is cloud security posture management. So we've recently acquired a company called Fugue and also partnered with another company called Sysdig. This means we're now looking not just at the code, but at the running instances of that code as well in the cloud. And I heard a great analogy. I'm going to try and do it without ruining it. So what we're looking at now is, imagine, a container is a blueprint for a car. A container, once that goes into a pod, it's to purchase a real car, and so does my nephew. Those two cars are exactly the same, but one car given to my nephew for a year and one car given to me for a year, they'll be very different at the end of that year. And that's what we're calling kind of drift, or configuration drift. And we're now looking at things like, can we detect or we can detect that drift in your cloud configuration as well, which can be things like perhaps people installing a crypto miner on that container, or things happening to that container that shouldn't be happening. And that's a really important part of that cloud posture. So we're also moving into that space as well. Right, I tried to keep that quite quick looking at the time, but I hope that analogy came across.
Yeah, I like that analogy of the same car bought at the same time, but you drive it, driven by different people. It has a different life, and it becomes a different object at the end, even though it was identical at the start. Yeah, I like that analogy. Leo, any parting thoughts for us in the audience?
Yeah, I think the shift left is inevitable because we're all consumers of technology. So I know it's scary. I know things are changing at an exponential rate. I think with technology, and especially if you're a developer or engineer, then embrace it. Make the most of it, and take your time. And again, we're all consumers of technology, and I think we all have a part to play. Whether that's CISO or QA, whoever, it's we all have a part to play, I think, with the security. And again, we're all consumers of technology, and the more effort we make to make these things safer, then the less stress we have in real life, never mind our busy day jobs and everything going on in the world, so I think that's definitely I think for me becomes kind of full circle. Yeah.
Absolutely. So thank you very much, Paul Harlan from Snyk and Leo Cunningham from Flo. Thank you for joining us today at Barrier's CISO Fireside Chat on Shifting Left. And thank you very much for joining us today. And feel free to contact Barrier, Snyk, or Flo if you have any questions about what we do and what they do, and the solutions that they offer. So thank you very much for joining me, gentlemen, and thank you very much for attending and watching today. And we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.